All right, so hello, my name is Gustavo Molinar. I serve as the Mental Health Literacy Specialist for Mental Health America. Thanks so much for joining. So my role serves to educate, empower, and advocate positive mental health. So hopefully you find this video informative and that you can share with folks to learn more about mental health. Feel free to comment some questions you may have. I'll answer them throughout this live session, or at the end of the video, I'll also allow some time for questions. So today we're discussing mental health. So we'll define mental illness, what mental health is, and self-care strategies, including how to either seek for help or seek help, or to how to provide help for folks. So we sometimes hear mental health, mental illness, and other terms that get confused and used interchangeably. So I wanted to define what mental health and what mental illness is. So mental health can be described as a person's conditions regarding their psychological and emotional well-being. So that implies that everyone has mental health, similar to how everyone has physical health, right? We notice when we get hurt, we notice that we may need to go to get something checked out. Similar to that, mental health is very important because everyone has it. So it's something that we should be discussing. On the contrary, mental illness is a mental disorder, also called or a mental illness or psychiatric disorder. It's a behavioral or mental pattern that causes significant distress or impairment of a personal functioning. So mental disorders are usually defined by a combination of how a person behaves, feels, perceives, or thinks. So think of this as something that happens. So everyone has mental health, but mental illness is truly an illness similar to physical illness that we get or that may develop in the course of our lifetime. So, how do you know that you're experiencing a sign of mental illness? So, there may be a change in behavior, so appetite, sleep, hygiene, energy, or movement. So, we all have different routines, but if these routines fall out of hand, or you start noticing that after a while folks don't eat or anything like that, then it may be a sign of a mental illness. There may be also a loss of motivation, physical aches and pains, racing thoughts, difficulty concentrating, lack of interest or in their usual activities, restlessness or irritability, phobic and avoidant behavior, among other things. And of course, always thoughts of death and suicide. So these may all lead to being signs of a mental illness. And so a way that you can bring this up with folks, if you start noticing for others, is using I statements, right? So I've noticed, I think, or I believe, making sure that you listen carefully and tell the person what you hear them say. So this is called reflection, right? So sharing back with them, I think I've noticed you not showering anymore or having truly a sense of hopelessness or that you no longer have any motivation to do anything. And so I'm concerned for you. Can you tell me more? And so when they do, of course, thank them and assure them that mental health issues are incredibly common and very treatable. So what can we do about it? Well, you can first do some self-care. So this is actively looking after your own mental health and well-being so that you can effectively support the people around you and, of course, yourself. So it's important that you are taking care of yourself throughout and that you don't wait until it's too late, right, to take care of your mental health and well-being. We do use the hashtag in our campaign before stage 4. So that really means getting to or being good before getting to a stage of having to be reactive rather than proactive. So what does self-care look like? So this means doing what you need to do to be the best version of yourself. For example, setting boundaries with folks and setting boundaries with yourself. I know that right now a lot of us are doing things virtually, and so it's important that we disconnect from our devices and unplug and set boundaries for ourselves, like not joining on social media too much, or really seeing if there's a way to truly unplug from our work. saying no, right? So we love our opportunities, we love to connect, and we, of course, want you to connect to other folks, which is a good self-care strategy. But at the same time, you don't have to accept every single thing that comes across for you. And so making sure that you always say no if you think that it is too much for you, or that you don't have the capacity to do that. You can also ask for help, right? So asking for help is never a bad thing. So whether you need immediate help or you think that you just want to talk to someone, it's important that you do. So you can always reach out to a friend or a trusted colleague, anything like that, and they're more than willing to help. You can always advocate for yourself. So making sure that you state what you need, state your expectations, and that you are doing what you need to do to be successful. Now, sometimes, so those are things that you can do proactively, but sometimes you need to do some things that, so that you feel when you feel overwhelmed, that you can do quickly. So something that may help is writing these things down beforehand, right? So that you have them ready. But if not, you can do them when you're feeling overwhelmed. That'll help you focus, right? So one thing you can do, like I said, write them down. So write down one thing you can do in 30 seconds to calm yourself. So do you know that there's something that calms you from feeling overwhelmed or overstressed? You can do that. Write one thing that makes you laugh, right? Oftentimes, laughing is a great cure for what's going on. One accomplishment that you're proud of. So sometimes we feel inadequate and we want to immediately feel better about ourselves. So it's important that you remind yourself of all the great things that you have potentially done before in the future, and that you are having those on hand for whenever you feel overwhelmed or too stressed. And as always, one person you can talk to when you're upset. So if you know that you have a friend or a colleague or anyone else that you can trust them, make sure that you have them, that you write down their information, that you also can reach out to them and kind of reach out and say, hey, I just need to talk to someone. Is that okay? In that way, anyone can reach out for anything that you may have. Now, as you want to continue practicing positive mental health, you also want to practice self-compassion. So what does this mean? So self-compassion is acting the same way towards yourself when you're having a difficult time, fail, or notice something you don't like about yourself. So kind of loving yourself as much as you may love others unconditionally. And so this means operating with self-kindness, right? Being kind to yourself, knowing that we're all human and that happens, and practicing common humanity, that you're not alone and that you may fail, but that it's okay to fail, as well as practicing some mindfulness. So oftentimes you may have come across this term mindfulness, meaning that you just focus on one thing. And of course, that is one definition or component of mindfulness, but this also means going and kind of processing thoughts, emotions, sentiments without judging yourself and just taking it bit by bit so that you can do that. Now, you may also have heard burnout. And so for this, this means kind of something that happens at a particular time of stress that happens when you are overworked, doing things overly beyond your capacity, which is why it's important to say no and set those boundaries. But if you are feeling burnout, right, making sure that you are talking to someone and seek your support and engage in healthy lifestyles beforehand and during that period of burnout, such as exercising, dieting, getting adequate hydration and sleep. Often you'll find that when you are not practicing those things, it can be that that you may burn out because you're not practicing those things. So we do have a comment that says, what are some ways we can educate those we are quarantined with that mental health issues can cause a lack of motivation and self-care is different for every person? So currently, some folks are quarantined with parents or others that you usually interact less with, or you don't see them at all. For example, I'm back home and living with parents, and so it is definitely an interesting time to be back home. And so something that I've done is, again, set those boundaries and kind of explain what this means for me and what it means for them, and having an open conversation about mental health, which is why it's important to talk about. And kind of you can share what triggers you or what would make you overwhelmed, overstressed, and that's a good way to start that. And as well as sharing that self-care looks different for you, or it may look different for you, right? That for some people, that typical self-care of taking a shower or luxurious things can work for you, but for self-care for some, it's just simply sitting outside and getting some vitamin D. And so it's very important that you share what self-care looks for you, and also sharing information from reputable sources that may be helpful for both yourself and for the others that you're quarantined with. Now, the lack of motivation, everyone is definitely feeling it, right? We have um, different terms of engaging with others. We may be home and working from our, makeshift offices. For some, that may be that you share your bedroom with your office as well as with other folks, and so that motivation can be low. And first, of course, giving yourself some grace and acknowledging that this is a difficult time. So I would recommend definitely talking to the people that you're with, who you're quarantined with, but as well as talking to supervisors, right? So explaining your situation may help. You don't have to give them everything, but explaining to them, hey, can we talk about modified hours, or kind of can we acknowledge that I'm home with kids, and that may look different. And so I also have to focus on other aspects of life. And so the quarantining and this pandemic looks different for everyone. So it's important that you discuss this with everyone. Hopefully that answered the question. So going back to burnout, and we're discussing COVID right now. So first, we have to acknowledge that our lives look different because of that pandemic. And so our plans and goals may have shifted or have even been canceled. So first, acknowledge it. And then know that there's no wrong or right way to react to what's going on. So we all process differently. And then we experience things differently, of course. So, but something that we may all be experiencing is grief, which is a natural response to change in or end of a familiar pattern of behavior, which is, of course, our behaviors and patterns of way that we operate has changed dramatically since shelter in place has changed, or even as different states are reopening or the country is gearing to reopen. There's still fear of what this pandemic can bring, because it is a developing situation, but as well as that, even as we reopen, those processes look different. And so we all experience them differently. We may have mixed emotions. Our experiences that we are usually looking forward to right now, right? Graduations, moves, there are deaths. We all are going to experience different emotions. And so ways that you can relieve the grief, right? For yourself, but as well as others, how you discuss this with others, making sure that you validate and acknowledge what is going on, learning to make small and positive changes in attitudes and behaviors, right? So you don't have to change immediately from one day to the other, or even hour to hour. So learning to make those small positive changes, kind of looking at the positive of the daily things that are happening. Right now, if you're joining us from Houston, you know that the weather is really good today. So compared to a few days, it was thundering and not really a good way to go outside, but today it's good. And so looking at those small positives. Knowing that this is an ongoing process, both understanding and knowing what the pandemic is going on, but as well as processing and kind of making those small positive changes. And so our process, again, looks different, and it's a never-ending process. So acknowledging that and knowing that the better your support system, right? Remember that that quality over quantity is really true. And so find those people that truly support you and you can reach out to in this time. So for now, that's what I have for you in terms of information. I'll stay logged in if anyone has questions, or if you like to ask any other questions around mental health. I'll remind everyone that you can go to our website at mhahouston.org. We do have a variety of mental health resources, as well as COVID-19 specific resources that you can go to. If you speak Spanish, we do have a new landing page, right? So mhahouston.org /ESPANOL. And you can look at resources for both COVID-19 specific, but as well as general resources. So visit our website and stay tuned to our social media channels. We'll be posting throughout, of course, both resources and other events that we'll be having. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we're hopefully bringing awareness by going live. Next week, we will be going live, not on social media, but instead on Zoom. So on social media, we'll share the Zoom ID, and we'll be discussing mental health in communities of color. So please join me and other colleagues, both within MHAGH Houston, as well as some others, to discuss their lived experiences and their thoughts on mental health in communities of color. So thanks for joining. I'll stay for a few more minutes, and if you have any questions, make sure that you comment. As always, you can reach again out to us via our website or through our social media channels. All right, y'all. Well, thanks for joining. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through our website or our social media. I hope you have a great Thursday, and make sure to join our rest of our events, and hope you have a great Thursday.